Hello, everybody, and happy Monday. Welcome to the Art of Inspired Selling, where I interview very successful B2B entrepreneurs that want to bring information to you to not just survive in this new normal, but to actually thrive. And each guest brings their subject matter expertise on the show so that you could actually implement something that you learn on the show today and every day moving forward. So today, I am very happy to announce that we have Dr. Ivan Misner from BNI. I'm going, as always, so that I don't mess up, I read the bio directly because everybody deserves the proper accolades. So Dr. Ivan Misner is a founder and chief visionary officer of BNI, the world's largest business networking organization. Founded in 1985, the organization has now over 9,700 chapters throughout every populated continent in the world. Last year alone, BNI generated almost 12.3 million referrals, resulting in $16.7 billion worth of business for its members. Now, that's pretty impressive. I'll just say that. Dr. Misner's PhD is from the University of Southern California. Now, I don't know if you know I'm a Sun Devil, so we're just going to leave that USC right there. He's one of New York Times best-selling authors who has written 24 books, including one of his latest books, Who's in Your Room, which, by the way, I'm reading right now. He's also a columnist for Entrepreneur.com, has been a university professor as well as a member of the Board of Trustees for the University of Laverne. Called the father of modern networking by both Forbes and CNN, Dr. Misner is considered to be one of the world's leading experts on business networking and has been a keynote speaker for major corporations and associations throughout the world. Now, I could keep reading. He's pretty hot, guys, and I'm so honored to have him on the show. Today, we're going to be talking about networking in the new normal. We're going to open up the chat, so if you have any questions specific, we can answer them. We're going to talk a little bit about his new book. And without further ado, I'm going to bring on our guest.
Hello.
Hello, USC.
Yes.
Oh, man. USC is a fabulous university, and my son Sebastian applied there. So we applied.
It's a good university. I enjoyed my time there a great deal.
Great. So thank you so much for being on the show. One of the tickets to get on the show is that I like to ask my guests, what is it that inspires you every day? You've been doing this for a lot of years, right? Yeah. We get knocked down, we fall down, we get back up. What is it that causes you to just stay inspired and just keep doing what you do to improve the life of others and run this big corporation that you have?
Well, I think an entrepreneur is either working in their flame or working in their wax. And when they're in their flame, they're on fire. They love what they're doing. You can hear it in their voice. You can see it in the way they behave. When they're working in their wax, it takes all their energy away. It's just, you can hear that in their voice
too, right? They're like, ugh.
Yes. So I have done my best throughout my career to try to always be working in my flame. And one's flame may change over time. I was at one point in the BNI business, I was, the King Arthur leading the charge and, running the show. But I'm now more the Colonel Sanders of BNI. I'm the spokesperson for the organization. And so it's okay to change over the years. I certainly have done that, but I'm still working in my flame to this day. This is what I love doing. Having a chance to do interviews is absolutely my flame, and that keeps me inspired and passionate. And the other thing is helping make a difference in people's lives.
Yes,
that's really, really key. If I'm not doing that, then I'm not inspired.
And that's why we're here, right? The art of inspired selling is to inspire people to be the best version of either their selling self or their personal self or their professional self. Just always stay inspired. And wherever that comes from, find it. Find where the fire in the belly comes from and then lean into it. All great stuff. So today we're going to talk. Well, first of all, where are you coming live from? I love the office, by the way.
Thank you. This is my home office in Austin, Texas. So there's a really good, quick story I'll tell you about the office. I told my wife about 3.5, almost 4 years ago, we were living downtown. She wanted land. She's from Texas. And so she wanted land. And I said, okay, we're ready. Buy any house you want. I don't care. Here's the budget. Just buy whatever you want. I only want 2 things. I want my own office. I don't want to turn a bedroom into an office. And I want a wine cellar. Otherwise, I don't care. Get whatever you want. She was gone one day, Kathryn. That's it. One day. Came back and she said, I found our dream home. I came out here. It didn't have either of those 2 things. Neither one. And
she said, there's vision, but Ivan, there's vision.
Yes, that's when I found out she should have been in sales, because she said, look, we're on 10 acres. This space right here, build your dream office, honey.
Yes.
Whatever you've always wanted as your dream office, build it. And I'm like, okay, but what about the wine cellar? And she said, there's a storage room under the house. Let me show it to you. What a perfect wine cellar. Build your dream wine cellar. So that's when I found out my wife should have been in sales, and I built my dream office, and this is it.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. It has a little flair of Texas in there and a lot of masculinity. It's great. I see like maybe a couple scotches happening with a nice fire roaring, or maybe some red wine. Are you a red wine guy?
Yeah, some good Cabernet Sauvignon.
Yeah, right there. Right. Great herbs.
I got one thing you can't see here. I wish people could see it. It's behind the lamp that's behind me. I have a World War II Enigma machine, an honest to goodness Enigma machine. You know the movie? With what's his name? Cumberbatch. Where they decoded. It was about Bletchley Park, and they decoded the German codes.
Okay.
It's one of those actual machines that from World War II. It's an amazing piece of equipment.
Where'd you find it?
I have a dealer, an antiques dealer that I usually get art from, but he told me about this, so I picked it up.
That's cool. That's cool. I'm not really a history buff. I think, I missed that class. I'm going to admit it, guys. Nope, wasn't there. But science, I could talk all day. All right, so let's get into it. Let's talk about networking. Like when people talk about networking, your name is right up there, right? You're the founder, the father of BNI. People are grounded right now. My background is healthcare. And so healthcare sales representatives knocking on doors, bringing lunches, getting in front of their target market. Entrepreneurs right now lost at networking, pivoting, buying courses, throwing money wherever they can throw it. Let's talk about some of the best tips about how they can pivot, how they can function, how they can move forward, and how they can put money in their bank account. Yeah,
happy to do that. But first, before I get into tactics, you got to talk about strategy. And the strategy really begins with understanding that we're all in this together. Unlike most things that I've experienced throughout my career, they have been regional issues, maybe even national issues. This is a global issue, unlike anything I've ever seen. And I think one's mental attitude is so incredibly important. For example, I don't like to call it quarantine or lockdown. This is the great pause. The pause button has been hit on most people's lives, mine included, and we have to learn how to deal with our lives during the great pause. So let's go to the next phrase that's often used, and that's social distancing. I hate that phrase because you need to be more social than you've ever been before. What we need to do is physical distancing.
Yes.
Physical distancing that's a given. We have to be physically distanced from one another. I get that. But social distancing, no. You need to be more social than ever. And it's one of the things that we saw within BNI is that we transitioned 9,700 in-person meetings. Talk about disruption.
Yes.
BNI was highly disrupted. We had 9,700 in-person weekly meetings that we transitioned almost overnight into online meetings. And so thank goodness the technology exists to do that. So here's a couple of other mindset points. This is an important one. I urge people microdose the news. Microdose the news. If you are sitting there watching the news, and I know one guy that for weeks and weeks sat there and watched the news, you are convinced that the sky is falling and the world is coming to an end.
Yes. Yes, and people were living their lives by the number of cases, right? Like they would wake up the next morning just because they were going to start their day with doom and gloom. And and I just have to tell you, I don't have TV. I mean, I have a smart TV, but I can't take it. I can't take watching that. So I'm a subscriber and a believer in microdosing news for sure.
So I don't watch the news much anymore either. What I do, but you got to know what's going on in the world. So I have apps. And first thing in the morning, I'll open the app and pick and choose the things that I want to put in my head that day. And before I go to bed, I pick and choose the things I want to put in my head before I go to sleep. And so microdose the news. I think that is so incredibly important because those people that are obsessing over it are convinced that the sky is falling. And
we have some comments here. People are saying, yes, we need to be more social than ever. Another person says, they loved the movie Enigma. What did this person say? Was it from The Imitation Game?
Yes, thank you. The Imitation Game. That's it. So I have the device, the same model that Bletchley Park decoded during World War II. It's an amazing piece of history.
Let's see, what does somebody else say? Somebody else says, yes, microdosing the news is key to keeping your sanity. Right, yes. What's left of it?
Especially in this day and age,
Yes. Okay. So I'm sorry, I interrupted you there. So what were we saying?
So, look, it's easy for us to throw a pity party right now. And I get it. I've thrown them for myself, where you're just depressed about everything. But the problem is that when you throw a pity party for yourself, when it's over, you're basically in the same situation, but you actually feel worse because you've accomplished nothing. So I think it's really important to understand that disruption in one form or another is here to stay. It's not going to go away. This is it now, and it's the biggest I've seen in my career. But there's always been disruption. I mean, and the question is, how does the company address disruption? Let me give you two great examples. Kodak invented the digital camera. They invented it. They had the patent for it. But they said, well, we don't want to ruin our film processing business, so let's license the technology to other companies. Well, how did that work out for them?
Yeah, right.
Not very well. They pretty much went bankrupt. They're still around, but they're a skeleton of what they were. Let me just give you one more. Sears. If you're in North America, you know the name Sears. Sears in 1993 closed down their catalog business because they said the catalog business was dead. And the catalog was a huge thing while I was growing up.
Me too. Christmas.
Yes.
After I shopped for all my toys, then I made a Christmas tree and spray painted it green and put glitter on it, and it went under the Christmas tree.
And the catalog was like that thick. It was amazing. You could get anything in it. They closed down their catalog business in 1993. Amazon opened their doors in 1994. The next year, what Sears saw as a dying industry, Amazon saw as a changing industry. And they were able to pivot and, became one of the biggest companies in the world. And, Sears could have been Amazon. They could have been. And so I think it's very important for us to recognize that disruption is here to stay. When this is done, there'll be something else, hopefully not as bad as this, but that we need to be prepared to pivot and to make changes so that we can still be relevant. A good friend of mine says, it's okay to love what you do. You should love what you do. But if you're absolutely committed to loving the way you do it, you're probably going to become irrelevant.
Yeah.
And I couldn't agree with that more. Be in love with what you do, but don't be in love with the way you do it, because disruption will take you out if you're not careful.
Somebody else is bringing on Kodak BlackBerry is another brand that had 90% of the market and didn't pivot fast enough.
Yep. Blockbuster is the other one, really big, and Netflix just ate their lunch.
Yeah. They did. Now, you said you got 9,700 meetings online. Yep. How did that strategy work? Like, you're at the top of the helm. You have to have great people below you. Like, how did that pivot process actually take
Yeah.
place?
Well, I certainly helped with it, but I'm no longer the CEO of the company. I have a partner now he's the CEO, and he saw this coming, and I have to give him just a ton of credit. In January, he came to me and he said, "This is going to be really serious." And I was like, "Nah, it's not going to be that bad. It's just the virus. We've been through viruses." Yeah, and he said, "No, this is going to be really bad." He said, "I'm thinking about flipping all of our Chinese operations, all of our operations in China, to online." And I said, "Okay, well, it'd be worth testing," because I've been saying for years that BNI is going to be disrupted if we don't engage in the technology to allow us to do, but I thought it would be from mixed reality and holographic images, not from a virus. So he flipped all of China in January. He flipped all of Italy in February. Remember, Italy was the second hotspot.
Yes.
And then he flipped the rest of Europe in February, and then the entire world in March. And so our CEO, Graham Weimiller, man, he was looking around a corner. He saw this coming, and BNI exists today because of him.
And what platform are you guys using? Are you using a Zoom platform?
Yeah, Zoom likes us. We have 9,700 Zoom accounts.
Wow. Yeah. They're doing pretty well right now.
Yeah. Luckily, I actually bought, not a lot, a couple hundred shares of Zoom like a year ago. So it's up 360%.
They say some people are just lucky. All right. So you took the company online. Now, just taking all those interactions online is one thing.
Yeah.
But actually getting people to do the networking and the engagement and, did you put people in rooms? Did you still stay with your same structure? How did that next step happen?
Well, if you went to a BNI meeting in person and you went to a BNI meeting online, you would absolutely see a similar meeting. You would recognize it as BNI. But there are differences that had to be made. For example, if you have 30 people in person, you can mingle and mix and network during the open networking portion of the meeting, but you can't do that on Zoom very well.
Right.
And so what we've done is we've done the open networking in breakout rooms.
Okay.
And we made sure the visitors in particular had a chance to meet the members. And we would do at least 2, some cases 3 breakouts in the open networking, which is 15, 20 minutes long, so that people can connect with each other 2 or 3 at a time. And then we open it up to the same meeting. It's the same meeting as what we were doing in person, but it's online. And so, of course, PowerPoint slides become extremely important because, here's the next part of the meeting, and you put it up. And so that's important.
It's keeping people on point. Now, I even want to back up just a second more because there could be some new entrepreneurs, right? Because now there's that workforce, right? 40 million people are displaced or whatever the number is today. They may not know what BNI is. So can we take a step back and just talk about,
Let's take a step back.
What's BNI?
BNI is a business and professional networking organization that allows one person per profession to come to a chapter. So there's one lawyer, one banker, one chiropractor, one florist, and we get together every week and we pass each other referrals. You mentioned in the opening that last year we passed the 12 million referrals and generated 16 billion US dollars worth of business for our members. And by the way, since COVID hit, BNI has generated over $10.3 billion for
6
our
months, right?
members. Yeah, we counted from January.
Yeah.
So for most of this year, $10 billion in referral business during the middle of COVID, when people are going out of business. Business is being done around the world.
And so let's remind people that you have a choice. You can focus on the negativity of the world, or you can look at something like a BNI and go, wow, maybe that's an organization I want to be in. Or if they're not a good fit for me, there's got to be someplace else because business is still being done.
It is.
People still need business. Whatever is it. People are buying houses. People are sending flowers, right? There's still commerce that's happening, and you need to be where the positivity and the transactions are taking place, not curled up in fetal position.
Yeah, you can't do that for long, Stay there for a day and then get out of it and then focus on what you need to do to be successful. And we have 270,000 BNI members worldwide that are still doing business today.
That's great.
Not everybody jumped at it, by the way. I had one president come to me and say, hey, we got this baby boomer member who he just doesn't want to make the transition to online. And I said, I don't usually tell people to say this.
Leah says, wow. So, yeah.
I don't usually tell people to say this, but I told her, I said, tell him this. Tell him, Ivan said he hates change. And it's true, I do. I hate change. I said, tell him Ivan said I hate change. The only thing I hate more than change is failure. And tell him, look, he can change or he can fail. The choice is his. You can't make him be willing to change. But if he's willing to try, tell him you'll be there for him. You'll help him make the change. I'm so proud of this guy. He made the change. He's still a member. He's active. And he's going to the online meetings. And he's like me. He's a baby boomer with lots of gray hair.
It's tough for some people, but everybody had to embrace it. We're in it together, as you said. So what else happened? That the exchange of business. So what about people that aren't in BNI? What are some tips that you can give for networking in this? And do you have a wording? I was calling it the new normal. I dropped pandemic way a long time ago, right? So it was this is here to stay. So new normal, now normal. What are some tips that you have?
Yeah, 6 of one, half dozen the other. It is certainly a new normal. And I think you can do online meetings face-to-face. As a matter of fact, I wrote an article, I mentioned it earlier, 2 years ago, that said the future of face-to-face will be online. And of course, my organization was like, no, don't say that's true. But look, here we are. And there are many things that you can do today with the technology like this. When I started BNI, the second largest line item in my budget was the telephone bill. The phone bill. Salaries were number one, phone bill number two. Today, I couldn't even find the phone bill in the budget. I don't know where it is.
I don't even have a phone.
Yeah, you don't really need one. Even your mobile phone is so inexpensive. And now you can make calls anywhere around the country for free. Back then, a long-distance call was incredibly expensive. So I think the technology, thank goodness it happened in 2020 and not in 1985 when I started. Yeah. Because, wow, however bad we think it is now, it would have been a lot worse had we not had the technology. So I recommend, do online face-to-face meetings. And you want to have conversations with people, do these one-to-ones with people. And when we do one-to-ones, we have a system that we recommend, and I've recommended it in a couple of my books, called the Gains Exchange.
Okay, I'll write that down. Actually, I'll put it in the chat right here so everybody can see it.
Yeah, and you can do a search on ivanmisner.com, my blog, and type in Gains, and you'll find a couple of different blogs where I talk about it. It's also in Networking Like a Pro book.
Okay.
Gains Exchange stands for goals, accomplishments, interests, networks, and skills. Gain. And the reason that we think you should use that when you're doing a one-to-one with a person is that you want to talk about things that will help you find overlapping areas of interest with somebody else. Because when you find overlapping areas of interest, all of a sudden a relationship can be built. The first time I tried this, I did it with a couple of guys in a BNI group, and they said, we don't want to do this. One said, I don't want to do it. It's weenie. It's silly. I don't want to do it. I said, well, just give it a try, and I'll give you a review form, and if you still think it's weenie, just say that in there. So they did it, and they got to interests. Never got past interest because they found out they were both coaches for their son's soccer teams. That's it. Rest of the discussion was all about soccer and coaching soccer. And they agreed to scout for each other and videotape other games for each other. And they became really good friends. These are two guys that had never done business with each other in the chapter. And now, after this, they started doing business with each other. It's because when you get to know, like, and trust somebody, you feel more comfortable with them and you have a relationship and you care about them and you want them to do well. And so do a one-to-one, do something like a gains exchange so that you can find overlapping areas of interest.
And I like to tell my clients that as well. As you know, I am a LinkedIn expert, and I talk about what to do in your LinkedIn profile and to lace that profile through some personal information, because people can grab hold of that information, like, maybe not the best thing, but I say wine lover, and then you just said big, heavy red, there's something instantly that you connect on. So you need to make sure as you said, include those things. Maybe those are some of the things that we'll talk about weaving into some of the LinkedIn profiles that we write, which is great. And I put the link in the chat so everybody could go to your website that has the goals.
Great, thank you. And I am, of course, on LinkedIn as well. Although yes. I just found out LinkedIn has a limit. I didn't know they had a limit of
30,000.
Yes, I hit it.
Did you hit the limit?
I did, but as people drop off, I add people back in.
Yep. Yep. And people can still follow you. I've seen 100,000 million, people can still follow you and you can get your message across to them. But yeah, 30,000 is that magic number.
There I was.
Good. Congratulations. So let's keep going. What are some other things? So Zooming, people are Zooming, Google Hangouts, FaceTime. Now Facebook has launched some rooms that they can put people in. So there should not be an excuse. There's so many different platforms that you can do it. And, you guys make the effort. People are saying, oh, another screen call, another video chat. It's like, listen,
yeah.
Are you interested or are you committed into making your business happen?
That's
right?
Exactly it. I've always said, sometimes you got to do what you got to do to get to do what you want to do. And right now, networking events are, some experts call networking events super spreader events. So
elaborate on that.
Do you want to be responsible for, somebody dying because they were at a super spreader event? We don't.
Yes. No.
We don't. And so, you got to do what you got to do. And this is the guy who invented these in-person meetings, or certainly I didn't invent it, but I, created the world's largest network out of it.
Fostered it. You fueled it.
I fostered it. I mean, it goes back to Rotary in 1905 and Paul Harris. I think it's important, sometimes you got to do what you got to do. So one of the things I'd recommend is, try to get as personal as appropriate with the people. If they're a friend and you know them, you want to say, how can I help you? What can I do for you? I know you're struggling right now. What can I do for you? Now, this is a true story, Kathryn. I did a radio interview when this all started about 4 months ago. And I suggested the, phrase, how can I help you? And the guy, he said, oh, come on, that old phrase, that tired old phrase, that never works. And I said, well, actually, it kind of does, but you don't have to say, how can I help you? You can put it in different words. And he's like, no, we're on live. So I didn't want to argue with him. And we moved on. When the interview was over, we were still talking on the phone. And so I said to him, so what kind of guests are you looking for on your show? What areas of expertise? And he gave me 2 or 3 areas. And I said, hey, I know this person and that person in those areas. And he said, oh my goodness, you know them? I said, yeah, I know them. They're friends. I said, would you like me to reach out and see if they'd want to be on your show? And he's like, yeah, you do that? I said, yeah, happy to do that. So I reached out to them that day. They responded that day. I made an introduction that day. He said, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And I couldn't help myself. I said,
I got to hear it.
And that, my friend, is how you say, how can I help you? Without using the words, how can I help you? And he said, touche, you got me. And I said, it's not about getting anybody. It's about understanding that if you can really find a genuine way to help somebody, do it. And you may not be able to help everyone, but you can help someone.
Yes, daily.
Key. Daily.
Right? Daily. And the whole reason I started this show, how can I help the people in my network? How can I help deliver value to them? Because I don't want to see people curled up in fetal position, right? There's people being successful. Let's pick up what they're doing and let's move forward. So yeah, it's interesting. People think that I'm after something. I ask people to be a guest on this show, and they're like, "What's it going to cost me?" I'm like,
Well, there are companies out there. There are companies out there that do that. So that's why some people ask. Yeah.
No, there's no charge, people. There's no charge. We're here to deliver value and to give back to that community. So any other tips? And then, I'd love to get a little bit, I'm loving the book. I'm loving your Who's in Your Room, people. It's right here. I'm an Audible girl because I do my workouts and I listen to my books. So any last minute?
Yeah, I'm going to give you 2 more and then let's jump into the book.
Sure.
First is that if you wait until tough times are over, your business is going to be over. So don't wait anymore. You got to focus. You got to start doing the things that it takes to get out and connect with people, to forget about social distancing, physical distancing. You want to be social. You need to do those things right now. And here's one that I think is so important. Hope is more powerful than fear. I truly believe that. I have always believed that. Hope is that little voice inside you whispering about what can be, when everyone around you is screaming about what can't be. Hope plus a plan plus action can lead you through any difficult.
Let's repeat that, because now I'm writing it down. Hope
plus a plan plus action. Hope, plan, action. They can lead you through difficult times. I mean, I'm a believer in the law of attraction, but the word action is actually part of the word attraction.
And we had my business coach on here. I think she might have dropped off. And one of her big things, Rita, we'll just put you on right here. She says, take bold action. Like, just take bold action. Another person I follow, ready, fire, aim.
Yeah. Tom Peters was the first to say that.
Was he? I'll have to, now I can give him that.
Do it, fix it, try it. That was one of his mantras.
Yeah, so hope plus a plan plus action.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's key. But
and also
hope. If you don't have that, the rest will fall apart.
Don't get so caught up to how it's going to happen, but focus on the end game, right?
Yeah.
Just know what's that action you're going to take. What's the next positive action that's going to move you forward so that you're not stuck. Don't get stuck. All right. And you said, somebody just says action leads to momentum, which leads to more action.
Yes.
You pick it up, right? You're picking up more like the rock that's gathering moss. Okay. What's that last tip that we have?
Well, those are the two that I have for you. The hope and don't wait. It's if you wait until tough times are over, your business will be over. If
you wait till the vaccine's out and everybody's lining up for it, there's going to be a whole new problem.
Yep.
A whole new problem that we're going to have to. Here's somebody else. They're saying ready, fire, aim, love it. Yep. So apparently Tom Peters was the person who said that.
I believe so. Yeah, and he did say, "Do it, fix it, try it," for sure.
Okay. All right, so let's get to this book. Tell me who's in your room. I actually had a guest on here a little bit back that was talking about who's on your bus. Yeah. Kind of the same thought, right? But in hers, I think she could pull open the door and you could kick people off the bus. And we were talking about strapping people on the back of the bus. If they had to stay on the bus, then I'm like putting them in the back with the exhaust, right? So they didn't have VIP seats. But let's talk a little bit about this, because there's some really great things that I picked up from this, where we all talk about values. We talk about them. So I have another. Everybody has coaches. I have lots of different coaches. But one of my coaches, Deanna Nunez, we talked about values. And I had these beautiful written values down. And she goes, oh, those are so nice. They're so manicured. But let's really talk about what your real values are, right? So you can take a self-help thing. You can assess it. But you really give some valuable resources, right, in the book, where people could go do some. Tell me what was the research you did, or what was the thought process behind actually writing this book?
Yeah, well, let's start with the concept of the room. Imagine that you live your life in one room, and that one room has only one door, and that one door is an enter-only door, so that when people come into your room or into your life, they're there forever.
Forever is a mighty long time,
You can never get them out. Now, luckily, it's a metaphor, but if it were true, Kathryn, would you be more selective about the people that you've let into your life?
Absolutely. If I knew today what I knew, or if I knew back then what I know now, for sure.
Yeah, and that's what everyone says. And I would argue that it is not a metaphor, but that it is true. And here's why. I want you to think, Kathryn, I want you to think about this. And if you're watching this, I want you to think as well about somebody who you got out of your life. Because people say to me, it's a metaphor, I can get people out of my life. Great. So think of somebody that you got out of your life. that was caustic. They were difficult. You just did not like being around them. Now, do you have somebody in mind? I'm not going to make you say who it is.
Good. Yes, it was instant.
It was instant. It is for a lot of people. It's instant. So now I want you to think about something they did that really hurt or angered you.
Mm-hmm.
You got it?
Yep.
Okay, so here's the deal. If they're still in your head, they're still in your room.
Absolutely.
And they will be forever, because you will make decisions for the rest of your life based on the good and bad experiences that you've had with people. You see, the room starts here and ends here. The room is your mind. It's all of the people that you've let into your head, that you've gotten close to in one way or another, professionally, personally. And so they will impact you forever. And what you have to do is get really selective about the kinds of people that you let into your room and into your life. And the best way to do that is to really get good with your values. In the book, we talk about what you do is you hire a doorman. And it's not a real person. It's your conscious or subconscious mind. And you could call it whatever you want. You can call it the guard, the guardian, the bouncer. We like doorman, so that's what we call them. So you hire this doorman. That's your conscious and subconscious mind. But you have to train the doorman on what to look for in letting people into your life. And what you want to train the doorman to do is to train them on your values. Your doorman's got to get good on your values. And when they meet people, they need to kind of assess whether this person has values that are incongruent, dissonant with yours. They don't have to be the same values. As a matter of fact, it's good to have people with different values. They just can't be dissonant with yours. They need to be resonant with yours. And then once you know your values and you train your doorman, then you get a lot better of allowing people, the right people, into your room.
And if you just go on that journey, right, and you imagine that with your subconscious mind, you create that movie, right? Like my dude now that's going to be protecting my door is this big old guy. I'm going to name him Guido, right?
Guido, yeah.
I mean, he's there. He's got pumped up muscles and a tight shirt, and I'm going to have to sit down with him, right? I'm going to have to get really clear on my values and teach him what it is. And just the act of doing that, right, of creating that awareness and shifting your thought process to the different part of your brain already puts you a step forward.
It does. And, it's a journey, not a destination. You're going to have to retrain Guido from time to time. You're going to have to think about, exactly.
You might have to bounce a couple people.
Yeah.
Maybe there's a room. You say that can I have a room within the room? I'm building my own room.
What we talk about in the book is that it's something my mother used to tell me, which I think is brilliant, is that sometimes you take problems or people, you put them in a box, and you put them on a shelf. Mm-hmm. They're always going to be there, and every now and then you're going to hear them yelling. That's you thinking about them, but they're there in the recesses of your mind, and so. Yeah, you're going to make mistakes, and so you want to have conversations with your doorman to not make additional mistakes.
Right, and you just keep getting better because every day is a new opportunity, right? It's a new day with a new slate and a new blank piece of paper to do it again.
Yep.
Yeah.
And so, we give techniques for people to do that. For example, one of the most popular sections of the book in terms of interviews was how to say no without sounding like a jerk.
I'm in that section now. Yes. I like that.
Which one do you like? Do you remember any of them?
Maybe not. Let me tell you where I'm on chapter 7 right now.
Yeah,
so I don't remember them right off the top of my head. It was the part I'm at now is family members, where you have to understand how to be diplomatic and say no with your family members.
Yeah, you gotta learn how to say no. There's some good stuff in there about the family members, and it's sometimes it's challenging with the family members, but no is a one-word sentence, and it's okay to occasionally say no. I usually make it a 3-word sentence. No, thank you. But you've got to learn to say no, because if you're constantly saying yes to everything, you can never stay on mission for your life, and that's a problem.
Yeah, and saying no in this time now as well, because there's a Zoom for everything, and you could be on Zooms all day long, right? Is really understanding your in game and making sure that all of those meetings that you're having or all the actions that you're taking are actually moving forward.
They're marching your mission forward. So there are a couple. Let me give you one or two other, how to say no without sounding like a jerk. And this is my favorite technique, and for me, it works really, really well. If I said yes to you, I'm afraid I'd let you down. And here's why. It could be you don't have the bandwidth. It's not your area of expertise. It might not be your mission or something that really excites you to do or to work on. And so I find that people, they don't know how to respond to that. They'll take it because they don't want to be let down. And then an ancillary to that, to follow up on that, is a follow-up that says, although I might not be the right person, I think I might know somebody who could be. And so if you can, because I'm in the referral business, so giving a referral is always really important. Don't give a referral to just get them off your back. Give a referral to somebody who legitimately might be able to engage in that request.
Yes.
And so there's 2 or 3 things to know, to say no without being a total jerk.
But it's also okay when you're learning how to protect those boundaries and your values to be a jerk, I would say. I'm giving you permission.
I try not to be, I try not to burn bridges, but there are times where I'm really firm. I mean, I'll give you an example. It's a simple example, but it's one I use all the time. I changed what I eat about 8 years ago. I had cancer, and I completely changed my diet, and I was told I had 6 months to get surgery, radiation, or chemotherapy. It's now been 8 years, and I still have not done radiation, chemotherapy, or surgery. I'm in remission. And what I did was I changed my lifestyle and I changed my diet dramatically. So people will often ask me, when we're meeting in person, they'd say, "Oh, you got to try this. It's fantastic." And it's, I don't know, it's got sugar in it or something. And I don't eat sugar. And so I just say to people, thank you so much, but I don't eat sugar. No, just one bite, just one bite. And so I've learned to say to them, okay, just one bite. And they'll say, yeah, just one. I said, great, you have it and tell me what you think. But I don't eat sugar. And that's just a line I don't cross. So, sometimes you just got to be firm, but you don't have to be a jerk about it, I think.
Well, and I don't know if you could picture me being a jerk, but
I can't.
Just it would be no. That would just be as big of a jerk as I could be with my answer. No. And
no
so
is a one-word sentence.
And so I haven't moved to the end. Tell us a little bit about how the book wraps up.
Okay. So I'm gonna. It's spoiler alert. Okay. Would you like to know?
And I'm going to send it out to people. So I've already been quoting it this morning while I was working out. I was typing quotes and screenshotting it and sending it to people. So,
by the way, the Audible version has additional content that the written version doesn't.
Yes, right? Where people are saying, okay, but I digress, or I'm
going to go off script right here. Yeah, that was our favorite saying. I'm going to go off script. So, and all 3 authors read the book. We read different chapters. So here's close to the end of the book. It's the last really, really critical chapter. Would you like to know the secret to balance? Creating balance in your life. Would you like to know that?
Everyone would like to know that, right? Everybody strives for that.
Yeah. All right. So here it is. Forget about balance. You'll never have it. It's something that you got to let go. Now, when I tell this, particularly to an audience, I almost always hear somebody go, "Oh, man, I thought I was going to get something good." I'm going to give you something good. But here's the deal. When we talk about balance, we think of balance like scales. That our personal life has to be completely in balance with our business life, which has to be in balance with our spirituality, which has to be in balance with our health. And
just thinking of all that is enough, right? That takes up the headspace. Just the thought of it.
Yes. And so I think balance is the wrong way to look at this. Life, particularly for entrepreneurs, is much more of a juggling act than a balancing act. It's about juggling a lot of different things. And so I would reposition the concept from having a life of balance to having a life of harmony. having a life of harmony. Even the logo, the graphic for harmony, the yin and the yang, even that graphic is out of balance if you separate it. If you separate them, they're out of balance. And so to me, it's not about balance, because I have never had a life in balance, but I have created a life in harmony. I traveled before COVID. I have 2.3 million miles on just one airline. And so I traveled. I have little kids. I've been married 31 years, same woman. And so it's, I've never really had a life of balance, but I have really, truly had a life of harmony. And so what we talk about in the book is, how do you create that life of harmony versus balance? So would you like a couple of techniques on?
Absolutely.
So.
And I'll make notes here.
Okay, here's the first one, and it's so simple sounding, but it's not easy to do. A lot of what we talk about is simple, but not easy. If it were easy, everyone would do it, but they don't. Here's the first one. 3 words. Be here now. Be here now.
Yes.
Wherever you are, be present to that moment. Don't be at work thinking about the fact that you didn't spend time with your family last night. Don't be at home thinking about that project at work that's got to get done. Wherever you are, be fully, completely present. That is so important. You want to create a life of harmony? That's the first thing that you got to learn how to do. And nobody's perfect at it. I'm not, but I got pretty darn good at it in my lifetime. And I mean, to the point where my son, who's 28 years old, when he was 17, I was in California. I lived in California then, and we were sitting in front of this great big screen TV, and we're playing Halo, him and I, and he's just kicking my butt in Halo. And we were leveling up. And I said to him, hey, buddy, was I around enough for you when you were growing up? And he's like, what? I said, was I around enough? He's like, you're around all the time. I said, okay, I don't know if you noticed, but I'm actually gone about every other week for like 3, 4, 5 days, and I come back. And he said, yeah, I know, but I don't know. It's like when you're here, you're here. Can we get back to the game now? And I'm like, yes, we can. We can get back to that game now. And to me, that was confirmation that really striving to be here now was better than balance. Better than balance.
Let me ask this question. That I have two questions around that. So I too have been a road warrior, traveling multiple countries, international business. And my children used to think that I actually worked on an airplane when they were little. Mom's at work, she's on an airplane. But that's what they know. And we tend to take what we think is normal, and then we bring that home to our kids when they don't know anything different, where the house and the situation that they live in is their normal. Yeah. Right? And so we might be pulling something in that doesn't necessarily need to be there, but the check-in's obviously great. Well, what about if you can't be present? Do you think that, you have this deadline, you have something, and maybe a spouse or significant other is giving you that guilt trip, like you need to be there, you need to go there. So and now this is opinion, right? So yeah. Do you think it's better to be there and not be present and be miserable the whole time?
No.
Or to miss it so that you can then, after you've met your deadline and you've done what you need to, then you can go home and say, okay, listen, I'm going to step into this house and now I'm going to be present.
I think it is. It does help if you have a spouse who understands. I mean, my wife knew what she was getting into, and when we married, I met her in BNI. She was a member. It was the best referral I've ever gotten. And we've been married now, like I said, 31 years. So she knew what she was getting into. And there's certainly times where, maybe I was too focused on something with business, and she would tell me. And then I would try to make that change to be focused on the family for some period of time. Always try to make the significant events in a family's life. Mm-hmm. One for me, it doesn't sound significant, but to me it was. I made it home for dinner every night that I wasn't traveling. Every night, virtually without exception. If I wasn't on the road, I was home between 6 and 6:30 every single evening to have family dinner. Family time was important. And so the kids knew Dad was going to be home for dinner. unless he was traveling. And so little things like that are part of being here now.
Mm-hmm.
There were times where I was in my head and not present. And my wife, God bless her, would say, you need to go into your office. It's okay. Go on in, do what you got to do, and then come on back out in an hour or so when you're done doing what you got to do. Because she understood my strategy of, really being focused and trying to get something done. And she could tell when I was not fully present. And we would have a shorthand with each other, but she would do it in a way that wasn't incriminating.
Mm-hmm.
You need to be here. Then it just makes somebody defensive. Instead, she would say, go to your office. Get what you need to get done to be fully present. And I would, and I did, and I came back out.
So maybe we have a 1A, which is find a supportive partner.
Well, yeah, that needs to be number one, probably.
Yeah.
Find a supportive partner. But there are other things you can do. You get real creative with your time. Another true story, I wrote my first major book in 1993. It was published in 94. World's Best Known Marketing Secret. My eldest daughter, when the book came out, she's 34, and she's been texting me while we're talking. And God bless her.
She should be on the show.
Yeah, well, she'd be great. You'd love her. So I wrote that book, almost the entire book, from about 11 or 12 at night until 6 or 7 in the morning once a week. So my wife and I would put the kids to bed, I would put the wife to bed, and then I would go down to my office in the house and I'd start writing at 11 o'clock or so. And I would write until sometimes only 3 or 4 and other times 5 or 6. And I wrote the entire book, almost all of it, in the middle of the night. When the book came out, my eldest daughter said, "You wrote a book? When did you write a book?" She didn't know. She didn't know. She was asleep. I didn't tell her Dad's staying up for another 8 hours.
How old was she then?
She was, this would have been 1994. She would have been 6, 5 maybe. She was like, "You wrote a book? When did you write a book?" She didn't know. So, would that be right? Yeah, she'd be 6. So, that's an example of, trying to find time that doesn't take away from an important part of your life. Mm-hmm. And my family was always an important part of my life. And so, get creative. That's another one of the recommendations. Get really creative. Now, I like staying up late at night. Not everybody does. So get up early in the morning.
Yeah,
I had a CEO before our current CEO, Graham, who he was an early morning person. He would get up consistently at 4 o'clock in the morning. Consistently. And I would be, on those writing nights, going to bed at 4 or 5 in the morning. And oftentimes I'd check my email before I went upstairs. And I would send him a note, and he would send me a note back, and he'd say, "Are you still up?" I'm like, "Are you just now getting up?" Yes. And so, get creative with your time.
Yep. I had a fleeting thought. I'll have to come back to it.
All right.
Anyway,
what's the next one? One other technique that I think is really important.
Now I know what it was.
Okay, you tell me.
So, just something to remember is that's not going to be a forever thing, right? You don't stay up all the time, all night long.
No, I don't do. I hardly do it at all anymore.
Yeah. So just
also
stating to family or to supporters that this is important to me. My book's going to be done soon. This is a temporary thing so that I can meet some goals and stating, right? Creating maybe your own boundaries and maybe your own rules so that it doesn't become a bad habit and your spouse doesn't think that that's going to happen forever.
Right.
So they can't be
it's important to say what you're going to do and then do what you said.
Yes.
You got to do what you said. So I would tell my wife I'm not gonna be doing these late nighters all the time. But when we were dating, I did it, so she knew what she was getting into. But she was understanding for the most part, and I told her after like the second book, because I did the same thing on the second book. I said the business is getting to the point now where I can take a day off to write, where I'll just stay home and write all day. And by the third book, that's what I was doing. So there was an end in mind.
It took some time. There was an end in mind. Yeah. Okay, so what's the other tip?
The other one I did already talk about, and that you got to work in your flame and not in your wax. That if you want a life of harmony, you got to be working in your flame. If you hate what you're doing, you're never going to be happy. It's always going to be out of balance or out of harmony. You're not going to be in harmony if you hate what you're doing. And so it's okay to reinvent yourself, which is something I certainly talk a lot about, is reinventing yourself. You know, I go from King Arthur to Colonel Sanders, and reinventing yourself so you can do the things you're passionate about. And by the way, this is one of them. I love pouring into people with my experiences in life and helping them to achieve success.
And I appreciate that. And, you know, what I've seen while I've been interviewing all of these people is I love to pull that passion out of them, right? Yeah. To see the entrepreneur, to get them in that zone of genius, you know, where the notes go aside and they just light up and their face lights up, and I get it on camera, right? And we get to save it. But those are some of the moments that I live for. It's just seeing people like you just super passionate and delivering that value over and over and over. And then there's your inspiration, right? Your
there it is.
Inspiration.
My mission in life is to inspire people. Inspire people to inspire other people. That's what I want to do.
Yep, that's wonderful. The beauty of inspiration. Well, listen, I'm going to wrap the show, and I want to thank you so much. I know you're a busy person. You took time to deliver value to my audience. Everybody's here. We've had a lot of interaction. Sean says, live a life in harmony, work on your flame, not in your wax, just repeating some of the things that you've said. Any wrapping notes that you'd like to give out to the audience here?
Yeah, let me give you one on networking. You know the old expression, it's not what you know, it's who you know?
Absolutely.
I don't think it's either.
Okay.
I think it's how well you know each other that counts. Because you could have the best database on the planet, but the real question is, if you needed to pick up the phone and call one of those really big names in your database, would they take your phone call? And if they took your phone call and you asked them for a favor, would they be willing to do the favor? It's not just who you know, it's how well you know each other. And that's why networking is more about farming than it is about hunting. It's about cultivating relationships with other people.
Yep. And I'll second that with, I even have on my LinkedIn profile, right? I'm not here to build connections. I'm here to build relationships.
Yeah.
And I've spent countless hours on these types of calls, just understanding people. What can I do for you? What are you looking for? What are you working on? What pain is it that you're feeling right now? I have, 10,000 people in my network. Who can I pull from to connect the two of you and try to put some connection and help?
And that's exactly the kinds of conversations that you should have.
Yes. Yes, people. Don't spam.
Don't spam. Oh, my goodness.
I'm a teeny spammer. I'll just say I'm a teeny spammer because I want people to watch the show. So I might send out.
Aren't they people who sign up?
Pardon me?
Aren't they people who sign up? Who say, send me information?
They're in my network. I just send out.
Your network, that's different.
But they still call it spam. So when somebody says that, I'm like, I'm so sorry you considered that spam. And then I go directly to their connection and I say, unconnect.
Yeah.
Disconnect. You're no longer a connection.
You're
out of here. No more. We're all about love and light, people. All right, you guys. So thank you so much for tuning in today, where, as I mentioned, we interview very successful entrepreneurs to deliver value to you, so you don't just survive in this now normal, new normal, you actually thrive. And we want you to take bold action and to implement the things you've learned today. We talked about hope plus plan equals action. We talked about Dr. Misner's latest book, Get Out and Do It Audible, and we talked about networking and Zooming and providing value and everything that I always preach, right?
And if anyone is interested in BNI, they can go to BNI.com.
That's what I was going to say. Check out your latest BNI chapter where they've pivoted and they're making, once again, what's that billion number that we've already sold this year?
About 10.3 billion so far this year.
Billion, you guys. Let's add some more numbers to that. Let's be one of those people. So Juan says, thank you. That was amazing. And Kelly says, Nice show. Looking forward to joining you soon. I'm going to have her on the show. So you guys, we're gonna wrap that. Dr. Misner, if you'd stay on 1 second, I'm gonna go ahead and wrap the show. You guys, everybody take care. Next week we have another show coming up. Oh, let me just say as well, I got to do a little commercial. On Friday, I have been nominated for the National Association of Women's Business Owners, NABO, for the Rising Star Award.
I know NABO. I used to be a member.
Did you?
Years ago.
Watch the panel, you guys. Get out and vote for the Rising Star. I was nominated that because of the value that I do deliver to women in business. I mentor women. I get on the phone. I help them. Get out, watch the panel. If you feel like I'm one of the people that deserves your vote, I'd really appreciate your vote. So take care, you guys, until we meet again.